That's so great.
Just count, you idiot. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. Myself and Eric breaking down tonight's 7-game slate. Is the second of 2 slates today. We've got some weather that's not great overall, but nothing that's going to really cause me to changing my exposures or take players out of my player pool or anything like that. And if you guys are watching, you haven't done it, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also want to let you guys know, we'll talk more about this as we go as well. But today is the final call for the single sale that we've been running. So if you want to get 25% off any Sims or data package for baseball, sign up with that promo code SINGLE, all capital letters, get yourself 25% off. That does include our new single lineup simulator. And this is the last chance to take advantage of it. That sale is going to be expiring tonight at midnight. Eric, what's up, man?
Not much. Just mad at Luis Heel. Decided to go out and have 5 walks against the Angels today. Lots of strikeouts he should have had, and that was pain and suffering for me. But we continue onward. That was just from a betting angle. Now excited to talk some DFS.
Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. There's also something really dumb I was going back and forth with somebody on Twitter about, where the Yankees are trying to limit the innings of Luis Heel because of the time of the season we're at, and he's already surpassed his innings limit. I don't understand why teams look at it in terms of innings as opposed to total pitches they've thrown, because Luis Heel, so the Yankees, supposedly they want to keep him to no more than 5 innings for the rest of the season just to keep his innings in check. But he threw 107 pitches today. It's the most absurd thing to me ever. They let him go through 5 innings at 107 pitches because it doesn't impact his innings limit. But if he was at like 65 pitches through 5 innings, they probably wouldn't let him come out for the 6th inning. So I don't really understand how some of these restrictions work. And another thing, too, while we're kind of on the topic, it's very unlikely to me that 100 pitches is actually the number you want to be cutting pitchers off. Just coincidentally, the best number is just this like perfect round number. It seems all very arbitrary to me, a lot of it.
Yeah, I'm going to be staying away from Luis Heel the rest of the way. I'm over it. This guy made me a lot of money early in the year, and I have just been throwing money back into the money pit with him. It's just so wild to see how much I was up betting his strikeout ladders and stuff earlier in the year and how much I've poured back into it over the course of the last month and a half or so. So I did see the limitation. I still saw the Angels and saw 6.5 strikeouts with plus money attached to it and thought it was just way too low. And I took the bait, but 5 walks, man, you can't do that against a bad Angels team. That was just death.
Yeah, especially I think he threw something like 30 plus pitches just to get out of the first inning. And
he had 19 pitches in the first 2 batters and only got one of them out and no strikeouts.
I didn't even know if they were going to have him come out for the 2nd inning at that point, just considering how they're trying to limit him. But hey, he ended up doing pretty well from a DFS standpoint and much better than what the Twins pitchers have done as of late, because I'll tell you, in single entry last, I had a great single entry lineup because I stacked the Brewers in single entry. They were really, really good. Unfortunately, couldn't get a few more fantasy points out of them against the position player pitchers at the end of the game. But Pablo Lopez, he was in that lineup, which really prevented me from just winning GPP outright. And then also something else today, you got Joe Ryan going out and getting hurt, which, you know, not his fault or anything. Not that that's predictable in any kind of way. But these Twins pitchers, I'm happy they're not on the slate today because they've been a disaster the last couple of slates to roster.
You want to tilt pitching in single entry? I had Framber Valdez, and I came 1 out away from getting like 22 more fantasy points. Instead, he gives up a 2-run bomb and gets pulled out of the game for a hater. I was just like, I was about to win everything in single entry, and then he gave up that bomb. I was just like counting the money. Oh, I hate sports sometimes. I hate baseball.
So I don't know how much of that you were watching of the game, but he very clearly had nothing left in the tank in the 9th inning, like 0. I was watching and I was thinking, like, if he keeps walking hitters, I don't think they're going to take him out. And I think they might lose to try to get him the no-hitter because he walks the first batter of the inning. Then he gets lucky and gets a double play on a very hard hit ball, walks another hitter. And then it's like, all right, he's got one guy on now. He already got the double play. He has no clue where the ball is going. He's got nothing left in the tank. And then he just throws a meatball right down the middle, which Corey Seager annihilates. But I was thinking, like, boy, if he walks, like, they just had to take him out if he walks Seager in that scenario. And yeah, he stayed in. Like, you can understand because he's going for the no hitter, but there's another part of me too. I'm watching. I'm like, well, these are really high leverage games for the Astros at this point in the season. And I thought they were going to lose the game trying to get him the no hitter.
Well, he's got like a little Alec Manoah. I mean, he's a big boy. Framber Valdez is not small. And he was sweating profusely. And it's indoors in Arlington. So I was just like, why is he sweating so much? That was my big takeaway in the 8th and the 9th inning, because he just looked very, very tired in that regard. Not even just like, I thought the pitches still looked all right. But yeah, meatball till Corey Seager, he hits it. And then it zooms in on him, sweaty, beady face, and it's just like, oh my God, he's gonna get pulled, isn't he? Bring in the lefty, Josh Hader. Here we go. So kept that going. That was just pain and suffering personified, but still a good day. Shota Imanaga, absolute slam dunk. Way to go. Let's find another one of those, shall we?
Yeah, for sure. And your contrarian pitching option definitely outdid mine, because mine was Grayson Rodriguez, who got hurt 2 minutes before the game started. Which also,
hey, if you turned it to Albert, I got one share of Albert Suarez that I hand built in like in the last second. It was the one Grayson Rodriguez lineup I had in like the 50 or whatever. I didn't play 150 yesterday, but I switched out and had one Albert Suarez lineup at 0.02%. And after his first 3 innings, I'm like, I'm gonna have the nuts. This is great. But it was more just like fucking around. It was funny.
Let's try to figure out who's gonna throw a no-hitter today, or come
Let's
close
do that.
potentially. Top of the pricing range. We've
Chris
got
Sale's
two
good.
pitchers who are very popular that are also expensive. This is the first time in a while I can remember there being a DraftKings slate with 2 pitchers priced over 10K. Chris Sale is 32% owned against the Milwaukee Brewers. Then you've got Tarik Skubal, 31% owned against the Seattle Mariners. So 2 chalk payoff options, Eric. Of the 2 of them, which are you getting more exposure to? Who do you prefer?
So it's pretty close for me, if I'm going to be honest. I find it to be a little bit closer than I think what the field does to some extent. I really like Chris Sale here going up against Milwaukee. And he's the lower owned option ever so slightly, it would appear. But Tarik Skubal, no doubt, going into Seattle. Are you concerned that Tarik Skubal is going to get limited coming down to the end of the season? And I think that's the thing that's got me off of this, is obviously we're going to get a full workload from a team in Atlanta that is fighting now tooth and claw to try to be relevant yet again. But I don't really know why Detroit would have Skubal out there throwing 100 pitches a game now.
By the way, Sale is refresh ownership if you have it up right now. Sale's more popular of the 2, very slightly. It's
okay.
32.2% for Sale, 30.7% for Skubal.
Okay, I have the older version of that, so let me get this back up
very
here.
Close, very close.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Popular.
So Sale's more popular. He should be more popular. That's kind of what I was getting at into this. Like, I feel pretty good about Chris Sale just having full workloads. And here's the thing, Seattle, it's still a good strikeout matchup, obviously, but 97, 96, 95, maybe you see 94 today for Tarik Skubal, but like, what is the point of the Tigers out there throwing him for 6 innings, 7 innings? You know, I guess for our purposes, I think of the pitch count more too, Greg, but like, why would you have him pitch more than 90 pitches in any spot the rest of the season? It's the same thing that the White Sox have done with Garrett Crochet, which is the smartest thing they've done all year. Put your guys on bubble wrap, especially when you know your team's not going anywhere. You're not in playoff consideration. I think Chris Sale just has to be a leg up now as a result. And it doesn't feel like the field, I mean, it's obviously closer now than what it was, but I am very much in the Chris Sale camp over Tarik Skubal by a pretty noticeable margin now with the flip-flop. I had it at 32.27 before, and now with Chris Sale being 32 and Skubal 30, I just reran everything, 31, I guess. And it's going to be more Sale here on this side of things.
It is Skubal for me. I'm not really concerned about his pitch counts unless something changes. The reason, to answer your question, why they would continue to have him throw his normal workload is, what's that?
Cy Young.
Yeah, I was going to say Cy. He's currently minus 260 to win the Cy Young award. And that to me is the reason why he's going to keep pitching and have a pretty heavy workload. The Tigers are terrible. They're not playing for a playoff spot. This is like their World Series is Tarik Skubal winning the Cy Young. And that's so also dumb. That's how I think they market this team heading into next year too, is they go, we have the best pitcher in baseball. We have Tarik Skubal. Come watch us next year. Come buy tickets. That's the reason why.
If he throws 100 pitches, they're the dumbest franchise that has ever been and that there ever will be. Not that they're like that far out of the running.
And Jake DeWitt asked, what are his Cy Young odds? Here's what it is at FanDuel. Tariq Skubal is minus 260 to win Cy Young. Corbin Burns is plus 250. And nobody else is a real consideration. The next best odds are Seth Lugo at 17-1. And we all know there's zero chance of Seth Lugo winning the Cy Young this year. And maybe like George Kirby, who's also on this league, maybe he goes nuclear down the stretch of the season, and maybe he is the guy with long. If you ask me who's the pitcher with long odds as the best chance to win, it's George Kirby. Still not a good bet at 27-1, but I think he's more live to win than Seth Lugo. But that's why. That's why I think we see Skubal go out and throw his normal workload. I think they want to get him to Cy Young.
Okay, that's fair. I don't think it's going to be like a normal workload. I don't think he's going to get up to 100. I think that's kind of the big deal to me. But there's no doubt that it's a great ballpark. It's a game with a frickin' 6 total. So there you are. But Skubal, it's not that I'm writing him off. I said it's more like it's closer than what I thought the field had before. But yeah, Chris Sale, I have in 42% of my lineups, Tariq Skubal in 28.
And for reference, Chris Sale also the betting favorite to win the NL Cy Young. He's currently plus 110 for the National League side of things. So I prefer Skubal. You prefer Chris Sale. I don't have issue with anybody who goes to either side of that. However, let's look at the next pricing range of pitchers, and we'll just group all the guys who are 8 to 9K together. So Taj Bradley down through Cutter Crawford. Eric Crawford, $8,100. Taj Bradley is $9,200. Here's the chalk in this price range. George Kirby, the most popular pitcher overall on the slate. He is 37% owned. Cole Reagans, he is 24% owned. Bradley's 13% owned. Freddie Peralta is 18% owned. The only pitcher that's priced in this range that's pulling no real ownership is Cutter Crawford, 4% on going up against the Kansas City Royals. Where I think this has to start here is by talking about George Kirby at home, pitching against the Detroit Tigers, the most popular pitcher on the slate. I think that for sure you want to have him in cash games, and then you pair him with your preferred of Sale or Skubal, and whichever one of those two you prefer, you're pairing with George Kirby. But what are you going to do with him in GPPs relative to the 37% ownership?
I'm going to be right around the field. I think he's the safest pitching option. I mean, it's probably who would you pair George Kirby with in cash between Sale and Skubal? You'd go Skubal?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's just a game with a 6 total. And George Kirby, well, it's not crazy strikeout stuff. He gets Detroit on the other side of this. It's you can't even say like it's a watered down lineup because it's always a watered down lineup. It has been since day one of the MLB season, but it's truly egregious to look at. He's a guy who gets by on accuracy. I'm not like a George Kirby stan by any means, but for DFS today, he is extremely safe. It's just simply I'm trying to win a tournament, and I think that's where Freddie Peralta comes in going up against Atlanta. I'm going to be ramping up his ownership. I'm well over the field on Freddie Peralta. He's 8,500. I'm obviously nervous about this, but Cole Reagans has to take on Boston in Kauffman. It's a little bit better for pitching weather in Kauffman today. The wind blowing in from right ever so slightly, 80 degrees. Not like crazy humid or anything by those means, but I'm trying to win a tournament. I think Freddie Peralta against Atlanta could be the stone cold nuts. We just saw Colin Rea just mow them down. Mow them down. Atlanta has a 25% K rate against righties now on the season, 93 WRC plus. I know Freddie Peralta hasn't been a normal Freddie Peralta in a lot of these chalk starts, but he is not chalk today, and I love that about him. So Freddie Peralta going to be my big stand of the day. I'm definitely going to be playing him in single entry.
Yeah, I have a contrarian pitcher I like. He is not the one, though, and I don't have it. I'm even with the field on him.
We're both playing Eric Fetty like crazy, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a second.
Yeah,
that's the contrarian guy that I like.
Me too.
Freddie Peralta, I don't have a massive stand. I've got the same amount as the field has. He's in 16% of my lineups relative to him being 18% owned. I think the ownership on George Kirby is certainly warranted. The price point is wrong. He should be much more expensive than what he is in this matchup. And also, one thing that kind of gives you hidden upside in George Kirby that kind of doesn't always show up in the numbers is he is somebody who often works deeper into games. So last start, he did only go 5 1/3 innings. Before that, though, he did not have a start where he didn't go at least 6 innings since June 4th against Oakland. So you had a stretch of nearly 3 months where George Kirby pitched 6+ innings in every single start. That adds a little bit of floor and ceiling to him because you're typically getting, like 2, 3 more outs than most other pitchers are bringing to the table. So his ability to work deep in the game, which is also aided by the fact that he's not the highest strikeout pitcher in the world. Not that he's like dog shit for strikeouts.
Right.
He does generate strikeouts a little bit better now than he did when he first came into the league. But there is a little bit more upside there because of the length that he gets out of his starts. Still does have the 24% strikeout rate, like the matchup against the Tigers. So overall, Kirby is my most rostered pitcher, but the ownership is there too. Anything else you like from this 8K range to the low 9K pitchers?
Like Taj Bradley has pronounced strikeout upside. We also know the downside with him. I'm around the field. You could go back and see Taj Bradley have 10 strikeouts here. It wouldn't shock me, but the blow up risk is so much there. And then we have safety in the guys like Kirby, safety in the guys like Tariq Skubal. I think he's pretty safe still up against Seattle with that ballpark. And then Sale the upside. I just see Freddie Peralta as a massive upside pitcher, top 2 percentage, around 20%. His ownership is lower than that. Positive leverage I like. Cutter Crawford, not really on this slate. And Cole Reagans, I'm generally a stand for, but Boston's been so damn good. Again, the wind is blowing in. It's a little bit more favorable pitching conditions than we've seen in Kauffman in recent weeks, and definitely, since Monday. But Boston's also they're just freaky for me. It's hard for me to want to get over the field on 24%, whereas I can make a pretty strong case for Peralta, and I'm definitely going to make a strong case for Fetty, who I got at plus 115 at BetMGM. I would still be betting that at minus 102 on FanDuel for what it's worth. So Eric Fetty, I love the over a 5.5 strikeouts for him today, and let's get into it.
Yeah, this is the pitcher I'm most overweight to from a GPP perspective. And part of the reason, too, to like Eric Fetty, in my opinion, here is of all the pitchers sub 8K, I really don't think any of them are good other than Fetty, who's pitched legitimately well this season. You've also got the ownership on him. It's not like nothing at 14%, but that's not significant either. So if I'm looking for a cheap pitcher I want to roster, Fetty's the only available option. And then if I'm looking for a contrarian pitcher I want to roster, the guys that we have to look at who are sub 20% owned, it's Taj Bradley, but there's a lot of opportunity cost there because there's a lot of good pay up pitchers. There's Freddie Peralta, who I'm about even with the field with. I don't like him quite as much as you, but still he's on the road in Atlanta. It's a hitter-friendly park, and it's not a terrible offense. And you got Eric Fetty, who's got a matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays, who kind of tore down their team a little bit at the trade deadline. And Fetty's been sneaky good this year. We've got 22 starts now. He's thrown 126 innings, 3.34 ERA, 3.85 expected ERA. Strikeout rate 21.5% isn't crazy high or anything like that, but it doesn't have to be up to $7,700 price tag and modest ownership. So to me, he's pretty easily my favorite contrarian pitching option.
Yeah, by far. And let's get into the nitty gritty of it. I talked about it a little bit on Lindy's last night, so I won't try to be too redundant. But Tampa Bay, they ended up they had 5 lefties in the lineup yesterday, but they've wanted to give looks to Alex Jackson. They wanted to give looks to some other pieces that obviously they're not playing for as much here this season. They're basically phoning it in the rest of the way. But you have 6 righties in the lineup today, and that is such a big deal for a pitcher like Eric Fetty, where his premium pitch, he is throwing exclusively to righties. And this is where, breaking down pitch types can actually come in handy from time to time. I look at that sweeper as his best offering, 172 batting average, 193 expected batting average. He's thrown it exclusively to righties. 420 total pitches, 377 of them to righties, only 43 to lefties. 172 batting average, as I said before, but a 28.2% whiff percentage. It is by far the pitch that he gets the most swing and miss on, by far. And so having as many righties as possible in this lineup mattered a ton. Now, I was on high alert for this because we've seen Houston. Those strikeout numbers were through the roof against this iteration of Tampa Bay after the deadline. But a week after the fact, it's not going to get much better for Tampa Bay going forward against against righties, because they have no choice but to roll out 5 of them a day. 6 in this case today. So it is a great spot for Eric Fetty. We've now seen that since that lineup came out, rolling from plus 115, now sitting by plus 105, best at circa, minus 102 at FanDuel for the public books. I absolutely think Eric Fetty is very, very alive for 8-9 strikeouts today.
Yeah. And I mean, the other part of this too, like I said, is if you're going to go cheap, I don't even really know who else I want to make a case for. Are there any other cheap pitchers that you're looking at and saying like, oh, this guy looks pretty good?
Not that he looks pretty good, but Bowden Francis is 5,400 and stretched out. Like that's really the main purpose of today. It's a 7-game slate. It's a little bit different. I don't know what to make of that one hitter that he basically faced. What, on the fourth it was? But he went 5 2/3 before at 76 pitches. I think he has the ability to go 80 plus here, and I think at 5,400 he's going to show up in 3% of my lineups. But he's the only one I rostered who's underneath 7K. I'm not going to be playing Phillips. I'm not going to be playing Stone. I'm not going to be playing Paul Blackburn in Coors. I'm not going to be playing Trevor Rogers in Toronto. And Ryan Feltner is dust, and to dust he shall return against the Mets. So it's, for me, just a price play more than anything else. I think Baltimore probably murders him, but I think the $5,400 tag is at least interesting to flip the build, maybe get just a very heavy stack. I look at the Dodgers and Phillies as two teams that, yeah, they're not facing complete gas cans. Phillips has been all right so far. Gavin Stone, he's gone through some regression here at the tail end of the MLB season. I'm sure the Dodgers are happy to start to get revamped this time of year, but I feel as though you don't really need to make those sacrifices. Way too much upside at the 10K, 9K range to really be going down there into that mid-range and trying to make something a thing.
The one I have the most of in this price range is Trevor Rogers, and he's in 5% of my lineups. The only reason that I even think I can make like some sort of narrative case for him, did you see the comments that he made to the media yesterday?
No.
He said that in his first week with the Orioles, he's gotten more analytical feedback than he's gotten in the rest of his career combined. And he said
incredible.
that this is going to be something that is going to cause him to really, really contemplate and change how he approaches pitching and some of his pitch mix going forward. So this could ultimately mean nothing, right? This is a former top pitching prospect who is really good, dealt with some injuries, had some issues, and then has just sucked the last couple of years. But there is some talent there. And I do think, well, albeit a small percentage chance, I think there's a chance that he's able to turn around just by being with an organization that's a little bit sharper. And I think that you can make a case that one of the reasons the Orioles probably went out and got him, kind of the same that we used to see the Houston Astros do, another really analytical driven front office, is they used to identify flaws in pitchers that they felt they were able to change, and they would go out and target those guys. I think that might be Trevor Rogers for the Orioles.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the main thing for Trevor Rogers is he fits the ballpark come playoff time. He fits his home ballpark. I think that's the sharp move that Baltimore made, because Trevor Rogers is a fly ball pitcher who's going to have a massive cavern out to left field. And I think that was the biggest mistake Baltimore made last year. I brought it up with Jordan Montgomery 100 times. Why they didn't go out and get Jordan Montgomery when the price was very, very low on him, I will never understand. But they didn't, and that ended up being the difference. I think they rectified that a little bit this year. Go get a soft-tossing Trevor Rogers who has strikeout stuff, but also gives up that contact, and I think you're going to eventually be okay. But this is in Toronto. I think Toronto gets after it. We'll talk about that in the stacks.
And one other thing to note here as well, if you didn't see, the Dodgers lineup came out, and it does not have Will Smith in it. So that's another reason that maybe a little bit less need to go and play some of these cheap starting pitchers is one of the offenses to pay up for today. It would potentially be the Dodgers offense. And now instead of Will Smith being in the lineup, it's Austin Barnes, which is obviously a big downgrade in terms of pricing, but then also the overall quality of the offense. So there just isn't that much of a need to go cheap. I made a case for Trevor Rogers just because I know there's going to be people who are watching are like, well, I have to play a contrarian starting pitcher for cheap. If that's the case, then I say Trevor Rogers, but it's a really light recommendation. And there's kind of a narrative around it, though, where I think that you could at least make a case for him potentially having upside. Anything else you want to talk about as far as the DraftKings pitchers go?
Let's see. Do I really want to talk about anything else? No, I think so. I think we've covered it on a 7-gamer. I will say the thing I always pay attention to with Austin Barnes is, is he facing a lefty or a righty? Always weird to me when they choose to roll him out against a righty, because he has some of the most pronounced splits of any catcher in baseball this year. He hits 375 against lefties. He hits 217 against righties. He's been legitimately good against lefties this year. He has an 850 OPS. So like Austin Barnes, there are times when I've been like, why do the Dodgers keep this guy around when there are definitely catchers you can go get who can hit for power against lefties, have them for a day. But Austin Barnes is a decent catcher from a defensive spot. He's a really good insurance policy. And, but it's just always weird to me when they choose to roll him out against lefties. It's like, I know Will Smith is an absolute lefty killer, but If you're going to find like a 1-for-1 split, like Will Smith is way better against righties than what Austin Barnes is.
Let's see. Were there any other questions here? No, nothing in the Discord channel or in YouTube related to the pitchers. I'm just rebuilding my lineups to account for Will Smith not being
Me
in the
too.
lineup
It
because that's one
sucks.
that's going to matter. Now, we're probably going to get other weird lineups. I'm going to have to redo everything again in a few minutes, but whatever. Let's get this all uploaded and good and ready to go. While this is running for me, let's talk about the FanDuel pitchers, Eric. And then also, if anybody wants us to review one of their lineups in the single lineup simulator, either post that lineup in Discord and at me, and we'll plug that in with Jordan here. Or if somebody in YouTube chat wants us to look at one of their lineups, throw a lineup into YouTube chat and we'll do the same deal. We'll plug it into there. But FanDuel pitchers, a little bit different of an outlook because Scooball, Sale, these guys are not popular. It's George Kirby who's pulling all the ownership on FanDuel. He is projected for 22% ownership, and no other pitcher is really all that popular. Fetty's 10% owned, Scooball's 9%, Sale is 7%. Kirby's your clear cash game play at that kind of ownership. If you're playing one guy in a GPP, I'm assuming you're going to Sale, or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, I think one guy in a GPP on FanDuel, probably. I think it'd probably be Freddie Peralta at 9,900.
See, what was his?
He's 7%.
7% owned.
Pretty low owned. He's lower owned than Gavin Stone, which makes no sense to me.
It's because of the price point. He's pretty expensive over there when you got.
But you've got Sale, Reagans, and Kirby and Scooball that are 4 guys in the 10K range. I mean, Freddie Peralta's 9,900 against Atlanta that strikes out a god ton against righties. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough. Colin Rea just lit them up yesterday. If that doesn't set off alarm bells where Freddie Peralta has upside here, again, I know he's struggled more here. I know that he's fastball heavy and that there's a lot of fastball killers in that Atlanta lineup if you look over a 3-4 year sample size, but I'm going to roll out more Freddie Peralta than I probably should today.
I think FanDuel, if I'm going with one guy, it's so much ownership to George Kirby. He's clearly great. He wouldn't be my choice for like a single entry on FanDuel. I'd probably go to Scooball. In between Scooball and Sale, the costs are definitely a little bit prohibitive. Scooball 11-1, and you got Sale at 11-3. Both of them do have single-digit ownership, though. So I'm going to say Scooball between the two of them. But yeah, I'll stick with that. I'm gonna say Scooball. The only hesitation is really that price point. And then if I'm going cheap, it's harder for me to make the Eric Fetty case on FanDuel when he's $8,900. And he's also he's the second most popular pitcher on FanDuel. So I don't like him as much on FanDuel as we do on DK.
No, I'm with you there.
Any further thoughts on the FanDuel pitchers?
No, it's an interesting board. I think it's pretty efficient. George Kirby being crazy popular 10-1 makes sense, but I would be, I mean, the Eric Fetty thing is wild that the field's so much more on them on FanDuel than on DK. DK, I think he has more utility on a 2-pitcher site than what he does over on FanDuel, where you're looking at projections of 6.5 for Kirby, 7.5 for Reagans, things like that. So for me, it's still a pretty good strikeout spot here for Fetty. I still really like it, but I like it more on DK than I do at FanDuel at that ownership.
All right, so let's go. And first we got a super chat here from a man, Jordan Klein. He wants to know, Eric, what are your thoughts on guys that work in finance? Is this like one of these things like, hey, you know what they say about guys with big feet?
Blue eyes, trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes. Looking for a guy in finance. That's what he wanted.
All right, there you go.
Basically said dance monkey. Did you get your money's worth, you fucking person?
There we go. Yeah, he thinks they're attractive with big cocks. There you go, Jordan. I answered for him. Let's go ahead and build a lineup for somebody in the single lineup sim. Anybody in chat that has a lineup they want us to check out, throw it into the chat here and we will plug it in. Did anybody answer one? Nothing in there.
Do you like it? Why do you like that, me doing the chop thing? Why do you like that so much? Why did you play that all the time yesterday? And why are you playing it today? I don't understand. What is that?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
You haven't seen it flash across the screen yet? There, it flashes. He flashes it all the time. I'm basically just like,
Fired up, Jordan. I want to see what it is he's talking about.
Weirdest people who work here.
It's how we segue to new segments. It's you cutting it up and moving to the next thing. BX44 wants us to do a FanDuel lineup. Yeah. So what we'll do here first, Cully Poston left us a super chat here. It looks like it is a 2v2 versus 2v2. So essentially a 4v4. On one side, he's asking us Taj Bradley and Eric Fedde at pitcher with Kirk and Cowser, or George Kirby and Tariq Skubal with a Servant and Varsho. Yeah, I mean, so even though I like Fedde as a contrarian pitching option, I like Kirby and Skubal as a combination so much more than Taj Bradley and Eric Fedde that Coley Poston, I have to say the George Kirby, Tariq Skubal side just because of how much I prefer those pitchers.
Agreed.
And then BX44 wants us to build a FanDuel lineup. Yeah, we'll put one in. Also, BX44, if you have a FanDuel lineup that you've built that you want us to plug into the single lineup simulator, you can throw that into chat as well. But we've got Will the Bill here. If you wouldn't mind, Jordan, can you plug in a Will the Bill's lineup? Looks like he is on it. Yeah, Sale, Skubal, Kirk, Vlad, Schneider, Kike Hernandez, Clement, Otani, Teoscar Hernandez, and Carlson. So we've got a Blue Jay stack there. He has got a Blue Jay stack that he's building. While Jordan is plugging it in, curious to ask you, Eric, what do you do with the Coors Field game today? Is this the game you're getting the most exposure to? Is it a different spot? Because the Mets weren't necessarily, they were pretty fucking shitty yesterday at Coors Field, actually. I was thinking the Rocky side wasn't all that bad. The Mets side was pretty bad, but we do have the Mets once again pulling a whole bunch of ownership. They are 17% owned on DraftKings today. And then you got the Toronto Blue Jays, 11.4% owned as the second most popular team. What are you going to do with a very, very chalky Mets stack?
I think you got to play some Mets. I mean, it's a 7-game slate. I think we could see more pronounced chalk, and I'm definitely not going to play him in single entry today, but it is really, really, really hard with some of these price points to say that you shouldn't be there. I will say the weather looks pretty good too. That's something I've been paying attention to because same thing as yesterday. You've got storm clouds just hanging around the corners of the ball field, but I think it's going to be all right. And it's definitely going to be all right for bats because I think it'd be probably a pop-up shower. But I mean, why it is that other than Lindor 6,100, other than Nemo 5,500, other than Alonso 5,600, everybody else is crazy cheap. 4,200 Winker batting third, 3,700 for Jeff McNeil with multi-positional eligibility, second base, outfield, 3,700. You've got two cheapers in Gamble and Taylor. I do think I'm pretty concentrated 1 through 7. I'm just rotating through these guys quite a bit. It is very hard to get away from on this slate. Yeah, I'm sitting just north of the field here at 22%. This is a little different than yesterday because I think there were some other spots that didn't look as good where Coors Field just kind of ended up being a jam. I think today I do like some other pieces, but yet I'm overweight to the current ownership share on the Mets, so I can't say that I'm fading it by any means.
And by the way, Will the Bill for the lineup that you had thrown into chat, it is looking pretty good. It's got, it's very, very chalky. The Blue Jays, the Mets as the teams you're stacking, and then the pitchers are Sale and Skubal there. But even despite that, because we do have the Mets projected so well in our data today, it is still showing up as a positive ROI lineup, 14.7%. So I think you are good to go out and play that lineup for sure. Let's plug in Malukar's FanDuel lineup now, if you wouldn't mind. Did you see that one, Jordan? Got Malukar. Yeah, it's the one Skubal. Yeah, so the lineup the Malukar built here is Skubal, Pete Alonso, Nolan Gorman, Nolan Arenado, Mason Wynn, Brandon Nimmo, Alec Burleson, George Springer, Alejandro Kirk. So he is making a stack of the Cardinals, the Mets, and the Blue Jays all in that one right there. The other team that's really popular on the slate, Eric, outside of the Mets 17% owned. Then we got the Toronto Blue Jays at 11.4% ownership. We do only have them with a 5.7% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate. So actually one of the lowest marks of any team. But one of the reasons they still show up in some lineups for me is because they're so cheap. You're getting a lot of good value on the Toronto Blue Jays. 16.3% odds being the top value stack. That is the best mark of the entire slate. So two really popular teams. One of them, the Mets. I think the ownership there is warranted. What are you doing with the Toronto Blue Jays, though, as the second most popular team on the slate?
So I said more than likely they get after Rogers, but I can't play them at this ownership. And they're probably the team that I'm the most scared of today, torching me because Rogers isn't popular, but the Toronto Bats are. Generally speaking, I would be playing Rogers in a spot like that, but I just think this is a slate where the strikeout arms are too strong up top for me to really entertain having to play him. I do have one price saver. Again, Bowden Francis talked about him, but like other than that, I'm really not playing anything that's 7K and below and just fading it pretty severely. So I don't get that leverage going up against these Toronto stacks, and I'm just blindly fading the Toronto side. There are a couple of different speedsters. Again, Clement has shown that he can get around the bases here pretty quick. Third base, shortstop, 2.6K. Batting in a place that he's just like, it's extremely foreign to him. They're extremely cheap. You now have Davis Schneider, second base outfield, 2.8K. I mean, just insane pricing. Leo Jimenez and Servin, 2.2K, 2.1K, but they are just a bad baseball team in hitting. Vlad Guerrero's awesome. George Springer has moments, but like otherwise, I feel as though 4.6 implied run probability, like, you know, in Vegas for a total, 4.6 in our top stacks tool. I think I kind of just want to play the rest of the range. I'd rather go Dodgers. I'd rather go Baltimore. I'd rather go Colorado. And they're all pulling less ownership than what Toronto is.
Yeah. So for me, I do have some exposure to Toronto. It's less than the field. I really like them to save salary with, and as a secondary stack, though, you just got so many hitters that are so absurdly cheap. So I do think the ownership is a little bit too high. This is a team that's really well suited. Number one, for cash games, if you need to save salary, they are going to unlock the ability for you to pay up for two stud pitchers in your cash game lineup. By the way, Malukar, your lineup's looking pretty good there over on FanDuel. 13.4% sim ROI. I say, hey, okay, go ahead and play it. But as far as the Blue Jays go, really like them for cash games to save salary. And I also like them as one-offs for GPPs. The players I get the most of from Toronto, let's see, my individual player exposures. Ernie Clement, not only is he $2,600, but third base shortstop eligibility. That's really strong MP. Wow. He's a really good cash game play. Also somebody who's a good one-off for GPPs. And then Alejandro Kirk at catcher, 3K, and somebody who actually has a history of being a decent bat there. And he's really funny to watch run. Not that factors into my lineups at all, but I like watching him around the bases. He always looks, you know what he looks like? He looks like he's rounding the bases like he made in his pants what Josh did earlier today.
Wait, what happened?
Oh, that's right. You weren't in chat for that. Josh shit his pants earlier today. Was that supposed to be private information, Jordan? Yeah. Took a big dumperoo in his pants. We're sponsored today by Underdog. If you guys sign up at Underdog and use the link we have below, you get a 50% match deposit bonus up to $250. So go take advantage of that. And that's also going to, that $250, that's going to go a long way to help you put in some extra best ball entries. Best ball season is upon us. We got free best ball projections over at Stochastic. If you want access to them, all you have to do is just make a free account, and then you get free access to everything we have for best ball. We got projections for DraftKings, Underdog, as well as Drafters. We've got a CSV. You just download it and you upload it directly to those sites, and your rankings are set. What's up, Eric? You got a look on your face.
It's a grown man shitting his pants. What was he doing? What did he eat? Well. I have never shit my pants in my entire life. Like maybe when I was a baby, but like since then, never even been a thought in my mind. What?
It's not like it's pre-planned. It happens by surprise. Like, I don't think Josh intentionally shit his pants.
But he actually is a grown man, like a 39-year-old man who shat his pants while on a show. How?
He just did. So
did he just like leave?
He's trying to eat healthier.
Did he? Oh. So he ate healthier and then he shit his pants?
Yeah, I was a little confused by that too. It's something that, so on Friday night, if you guys haven't heard us talk about this, but Friday night, myself, Eric, Josh, and Lawfare are all going to be hanging out in New York City. There will be inquiries about Josh shitting his pants and what led up to that. It is something that I am certainly interested in hearing about. Before we get to Friday, though, we got this show to finish. We got a question from Mr. Cool Cam. He wants to know, what is our favorite stack for a FanDuel GPP, Eric? So on the FanDuel side of things, is there a stack that you like for GPPs more than any other one? And here's a couple things that are different about FanDuel instead of DraftKings. Dodgers are 11% owned, so they're a couple percentage points more popular. The Blue Jays are 13% owned, and then you got the Mets 18% owned. So those three teams all really popular. If you're building one FanDuel lineup, is one of those teams the team to be looking at for FanDuel, or are you looking at one of the less popular teams?
I want to make sure that I say this correctly as I ran some stuff, because I knew you were going to ask me about that like you normally do. I am pretty positive that I would be playing Baltimore. If I were playing one lineup on FanDuel, I would jam Baltimore against Francis. Like, at the same time, he's 5,400 shape, whatever, 350, like 359x well, 11.1% barrel percentage. Doesn't strike out anybody. And if this version of Jackson Holiday continues, Baltimore is just a ridiculous squad. He has a 60% hard hit, and that includes the sample size of him being atrocious after getting called up. He strikes out a ton, but a 397 expected slugging, and that is only going to climb. We'll probably be looking at an entire Baltimore team of like 415 and up for expected slugging throughout the entire lineup. It's just insane how good this lineup could be come playoff time if Jackson Holiday keeps it going.
And Dangerous Dave in the chat, he says that nobody shits their pants on purpose. There's rumors that have circulated around my family that when my grandpa was very, very old, he would intentionally shit his pants because he thought it was funny for my grandma to change it. So I don't know if it's actually true that nobody does on purpose, but so everybody's rumors around my family. My grandma certainly believed it to be true.
So here's the thing: is I'll have Taco Bell, and then I'll need to go to the bathroom, but I don't need to like I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna die. Like, I don't think I've ever had that, like, the impulse. Everybody's like, oh, liar, you're a liar. It's like, oh, and then we've got Bill Miner saying, hey, it happens, Eric, it's coming soon. I hope not, because I enjoy having tacos and beer and not having like this massive issue. Like, I'll crap myself after the day, but like in the moment while I'm on a show, I'm pretty sure I would be able to easily be like, you know what, I'm going to take care of this and then go and do the thing and come back. That's what I'm saying. I can't believe that's even a conversation.
Here's a question. If you don't go to the bathroom because you're trying to finish out a show, I can't figure out if that is the most professional or most unprofessional thing to do.
It is both at the same time.
By the way, Malukar in chat said, I've fallen and I can't get up. I know that is a Life Alert reference, but be careful saying that. People might believe you if you say that in public, Malukar, if you say I've fallen and I can't get up.
Emacs been saying it for 150 years. Ever. Yeah, 150. I've fallen and I can't get up. Help me, help me.
Yeah. Another positive ROI one, 8.4% sim ROI. He's got a Blue Jays stack. It is a 4-man. He's got, I can't tell who, Kirby a pitcher.
That is Kirby a pitcher.
Yep, looks good. Anytime you guys submit a lineup and it shows up as positive ROI, I'm not going to tell you to change anything there. And then there was one, Ethan7 in Discord. He sent that to me. If you want to plug that in, Jordan, while we talk through the rest of this, I'm texting it to you as well. Yeah, check your text message. I just texted you Ethan's lineup from chat. So plug that in, and then we'll look at it for Ethan as Eric and I talk through the rest of the slate here. And then also one more time to remind you guys, promo code SINGLE, last call for that 25% off any data or Sims package we have here at Stochastic that does include our ownership projections, player projections, our tools, but then, of course, now our single lineup simulator tool here. So let's go ahead now, Eric, and talk about some contrarian stacks. What is a team that is not pulling a lot of ownership that you like getting to tonight?
Yeah, Baltimore. Talked about them over on DK. It's going to apply over on FanDuel as well. Or sorry, on FanDuel. Talked about them, and it applies to DK where I'm playing. That's what I meant to say. I just love getting to this baseball team against Bowden Francis, and for some reason, we're just getting them low owned today for inexplicably no reason. I know Toronto's way cheaper, and I know we have expensive pitchers that we need to be paying up for, but that gives you all the reason and all the land to get there. with as much Fetty as I'm playing, I find it pretty easy to get to these Baltimore bats. And again, 7.6% ownership, or most leverage team in the top stacks tool. I think across the board, just something that the tools are pointing me in the direction of. And then as I send out my lineups, I just like getting to them as a secondary stack too. So they're one that I like to get to. I think the sneaky one that I like getting to is Philadelphia. I really like Philadelphia against Gavin Stone today. Gavin Stone has started to show some signs of wear and tear. 3.30 ERA looks good. 1.28 whip isn't terrible, but coming off of road appearances in Houston and Oakland, where he gave up 4 home runs, he's now given up 7 home runs in his past 5 games. And now he's taking on a Phillies team that is littered with lefties who can really make his life miserable. So I think that Philadelphia is a team that I am really going to be overweight to when it comes to the flip. And Gavin Stone's had more issues with righties than he's had against lefties, which is kind of ironic, but these are just such quality lefties. I know Bryce Harper had a terrible July. I don't really care. I know that Kyle Schwarber is going to continue to, do Kyle Schwarber things where he's feast and famine at the top of this lineup with his like 200 batting average, but a 496 expected slugging and 55% hard hit. But it's a really good ballpark to be hitting in. And, if you can get to these Dodgers early, I know that they have a good bullpen on the back half of it for, when they have good outings, but they have kind of a weakened middle of that pen where I think there's a number of guys that you can get after if you get after them early, whether that's, what was it? Who was I thinking of? Not River Ryan, because he's not really going to be out there, but like Daniel Hudson will probably be coming out for some longer innings. Brent Honeywell. These are guys that you can really smack around. So Philadelphia, I'm pretty leveraged on today. So that's a low-owned team that I really like.
Ethan, your lineup looks good there, 11.2% sim ROI. Swaz also asked me to submit a lineup. It is a FanDuel one, Jordan. I texted that to you as well. So Ethan, I think you're good to go. And then Jordan is going to plug in Swaz's lineup as well. So for me, there's 2 teams that are lower owned that I'm considering for single entry, Eric. One of them, Baltimore Orioles. I like them just as you do. The other one, though, is the Colorado Rockies because it's Coors Field. Going up a pitcher, and Paul Blackburn does not generate swing and misses. He puts the ball in play. That is potential for disaster here. So those are the 2 contrarian teams that I'm well overweight to the field to. I'm about double the field on both the Orioles and the Rockies. One of those 2 teams are going to be my single entry team. I've got I've got another 15 minutes here to decide which direction I go. Those are my 2 contrarian teams, though. I'm not stacking against any of the chalky pitchers for leverage, are you?
Yes, I'm going to stack against Cole Reagans, Boston. Boston just has so much speed on the base paths. Like that's the thing for them. For me, it's like they could have games where they put up 5-6 runs and you could still run into a winning type lineup. You have Gonzalez batting third. You have Duran batting first, like he always does. You've got, an interesting wraparound with Sogard and Rafaela. I mean, there's just, it's not my favorite Boston lineup I've ever seen in my entire life. And Reagans is really, really good and not somebody that I actively try to go stack against. But like Sogard, Rafaela, specifically Rafaela, Duran, Rami Gonzalez, they are trying to get speed on the base paths, and they just shown time and time again. Even Connor Wong is out there running a little bit. I feel pretty good about these Boston Red Sox as being like, anytime they go up against a really popular pitcher, and Cole Reagans is like 24-25%. I said before, I'm a little bit underweight to him, which hasn't really been the norm for me because I think I'm generally in the camp where I really, really like Cole Reagans more than the field. But Connor Wong, I think that there's enough there. Only 6 stolen bases this season, but like 805 OPS, 302 average. He's been one of the better hitting catchers in baseball. I just think there's enough speed plus power, and it's baseball, man. It's 7 games. I think finding your way to more Boston bats isn't a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's funny. When I had asked you about stacking one of the chalky pitchers, like I was thinking about the Sale, Skubal, Kirby guys, but you do bring up a good point that, Reagan's also not quite as popular as those guys, but 24% still is carrying some ownership. The Red Sox are pretty low owned. If I am going to be stacking against any of the popular pitchers, that is the one I'd gravitate towards the most. But I only have 2 out of 150 of my top lineups right now are Red Sox stacks. It's more than the other ones, but I'm not really looking to get leverage in this slate against the top, because the top pitchers are actually good today. A lot of times where I'm looking to get leverage, and by the way, Swaz, your lineup looks good, a 17.4% sim ROI there.
Yeah, you want the pitchers to be dusty popular pitchers. That's what we always hope. But like you don't have that many choices. There aren't that many ball games to be picking between on a 7-gamer. So for me, it's more of like, I see paths for them putting up, mild amount of runs, a little bit of runs above expectation. Maybe they get after the Kansas City bullpen, which has been good, no doubt about it. I don't want to go pick on them, but there's so much speed 1 through 9 in this lineup scattered amongst it that I think that there are ways that they can put up runs with a double steal or put up fantasy points with a double steal or a little bit here, a little bit there, where I think they're a lot more appealing than what the field does. I'm not saying that I'm jamming them and I'm like double the field on them. I'm just a little bit more, there for it in a secondary stack. Like Gonzalez, I have 11% of. Like, I think that that's a really, really good option for contrarian lineups, getting to Romy Gonzalez, to get to Jarren Duran up top, who just has hit everybody well. I mean, this is just insane what we're seeing from him. And Ref Snyder coming off of Double Dong Central out there in Texas. Like, I feel pretty good about Boston being a good stack to get leverage.
Any other stacks that are important to you tonight?
I'm just working through my lineups here. The one I have the most of, the Mets. The one I have the second most of is Baltimore. Third most is Colorado. Fourth most is Seattle. So I guess Seattle probably going to be, but they're at 10%. This is a popular pitcher that we're getting. And again, this maybe is what I'm doing today, just working through my process. Tariq Skubal, I'm going to be stacking against him, it would appear. 31% ownership. I think he's really, really freaking good. He's the minus 260 favorite to win the AL Cy Young, as you brought up earlier, but it is a 7-game slate. If the Mets put up 5 runs, if some of the more popular teams, if Toronto puts up 5 runs, there's a lot of ways that you still, have 5 runs out of this team and it works out better for you. And so I'm kind of mixing and matching some of these stacks against the more popular pitchers. I didn't know that I had that much Seattle until I just read it off for what it's worth. I should probably trim that down a little bit, but yeah, I think that does it for the most popular stacks for me.
Yeah, we've got Einsteinium in the chat, just added us, asked if we like the Red Sox today. Less so for me. Eric has got some exposure to them. Really the biggest issue I have with Boston above all else, other than, like Cole Reagan's being good, is just the fact that how expensive they still are, especially the top hitters. So you have the situation where it's, if you are paying up for the Red Sox, it does kind of prohibit you from getting up to some of the top pitchers. So I think it's one of the main reasons that I don't really get myself exposure to them. But I think there is a case to be made that they are under-owned, just not a spot that I particularly am going to be getting to. Anything else you want to add? If not, we could do our home run picks before we sign off for the night.
Home run time.
All right. Dong of the night, Eric. Which direction you going? Who goes yard? Who sets us apart tonight?
I know that this is remotely chalky, but somehow it's not chalky enough. I think that this is just like auto bet territory when you start getting these type of numbers on a power hitter who is just this prominent. I can't believe that we're getting plus 330, or it's now plus 310 best available at BetMGM on Kyle Schwarber going up against the young blood here. I know that Gavin Stone's been better against lefties, only a 112 expected ISO against him, but you haven't seen Kyle Schwarber and his 246 expected ISO getting 4 or 5 plate appearances in this spot. 14 homers against, 18-degree launch angle. He is basically built to hit home runs. I think he's one of my favorite one-offs of the day. I think he's one of my favorite two-mans along with Bryce Harper and putting in some Trey Turner. Does he have revenge in his heart? These are expensive guys for sure, but brought it up before. If you're playing Fetty, if you're finding yourself to more Eric Fetty, you're going to have some money to spend on some of these batters. And I like those top 3 there from Philadelphia as a contrarian stack. Give me Kyle Schwarber going yard.
All right. I just ran my final sim to take into account all of our latest ownership. And let's see, who's a hitter individually that I'm getting to that I would like to see homer today. Not going to be a Mets guy, not going to be a Rockies guy. You know what? Let's get a catcher homer out of Alejandro Kirk today. Going to go for the little stocky man to go and hit one out of the ballpark today. Alejandro Kirk, that is going to be my dong pick. Looking in chat, we have a wide variety of picks coming in. We've got Dub K going with the Dylan Carlson revenge homer. We've got Nice Kevin. He's going with a Bryce Harper homer. Freddie Freeman from EMAC. Tyler Wade from Kyle Gentry. Anthony Santander from Dan Mahler. We've got Gunnar Henderson from Anthony Harris. Double dong call from Chris Williams on Shohei Ohtani. Casey Leatherwood is picking Kyle Schwarber and Anthony Santander. Hayes is picking Anthony Santander. Nicholas Robertson going Gunnar Henderson. Like 7 of the last 8 picks here have been Gunnar Henderson or Anthony Santander. Interesting.
That is
We've
interesting.
got Francisco Rubio going with Rob Refschneider. Malukar going with Jackson Holiday. Matt Olson from Jazzy Faye. Kyle Schwarber from Dangerous Dave. We've got Brandon Marsh from Anthony Harris. Let's see what else. Envious is going with Vlad. We've got Trey Turner from Frada Louie. Shohei Ohtani is also the pick from Obi-Wan. Brandon Lau is the pick from Buccaneer. We got Ryan Mountcastle from JS. Mountcastle as well from Michael Surek. Trey Turner, I think I already read off the one from Frada Louie. So Jordan, close it out for us. 2 homers today.
Oh, that's a contrarian Asian guy.
Who did he say? I didn't hear him.
Lars Nootbaugh.
Oh,
plays
Lars
for Japan.
Nootbaar.
He was
It's
like
funny,
the
'cause
Japan national team expert. I don't even know how you knew that he was Asian, to be fair, Jordan Klein.
What do you mean? Jordan just picks the players he thinks are most likely to homer every day.
But he's not, he's like, I don't know. He looks less likely as far as like a choice from Jordan Klein. I'm very proud of you. Look at you knowing baseball. He's a baseball knower, friends.
Yeah, it's actually funny because I see Paul C in the chat going to Nick Sogar. Like that'd be a real clever pick from Jordan. He picked somebody who played overseas. That would be an interesting twist on Jordan's picks.
That would be great.
But guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for one of our data or Sims packages for baseball, that promo code SINGLE. This is the final time to sign up for that. That's going to be expiring tonight at midnight. So guys, have a great night. Good luck with your lineups. See you back here tomorrow. Peace.